You know who wasn't celebrating at all? Two teams who at one time we thought were among the best in the NFC, the Cowboys and Rams, who each started the season 3-0, have both fallen 3 weeks in a row to move to 500. It's the first time losing 3 in a row for the Rams under Sean McVay, who had to go against a really good 49ers team that held the Rams to 165 total yards, 56 passing yards. That's the fewest in 3 seasons under Sean McVay. Only 10 first downs, 7 points. You can go any way you want and look at this game. It was thorough dominance by the 49ers. So I think there is some part of we have to give credit to the 49ers, but also what does this mean for the Rams, who look bad?
This is – I want to be fair to the 49ers and therefore the Rams, because the 49ers are really good. And you can see their sideline, like their coaches, the defensive coordinator, how fired up and invested he is in what's going on out there. And who is it, Shanahan? Is that their head coach?
Yep, Kyle Shanahan.
Like, he looks involved. Players seem to be engaged and responding to what they're doing. So that team is for real. The Rams seem to be I don't know, just something's a mess there. Like the whole Todd Gurley situation and the mystery that's kind of surrounded him coming into the season, and then this week when you roll out, what was it, a thigh bruise?
Yeah.
An undisclosed thigh bruise. When did that happen, Danny?
I have no idea.
You're not in pads. You're not running around banging. Like, there just seems to be something more going on in L.A. that we're not being, given the answers to, right? And then there is something real about, stylistically. Like, when I played for the Suns, like, once we kind of reinvented offense to a degree, right?
Yep.
No one was really playing like that. And it was hitting people in the face early. Like, people couldn't catch up to it. It took them years to catch. But then they started to catch up to it.
Right.
Like, they started to creep around with the answers. A couple teams started to figure out what they could do to slow us down. And once the blueprint was laid out, other people started to take it and run with it. You know what I mean? So you weren't taking the league by storm with that offensive approach anymore. So I think there's something to that. But I also think there's something a little funky there in L.A. With the Todd Gurley situation and all the secrecy around it.
I think so, too. I don't even know if it's a secret anymore. I think his knee is just it's banged up.
Well, they're not saying it.
But they won't, but everybody kind of knows. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I think it's a condition where if it's an arthritic knee, there's nothing really you can do for it.
They don't get better.
No, exactly. Yeah. So I think what you're seeing is them trying to manage it. But why, if you're trying to manage it, maybe they looked, hey, he had a lot of work the last 2 weeks, but you had lost 2 in a row. You think, if anything, you're trying to get him back out there healthy. Maybe they're shelving him until they get him healthy. There is something going on, and we don't know what it is. The other thing is Jared Goff,
right,
who I still don't understand why they paid him before this season. And it was as bad as it gets. He only threw for 78 yards. That's the worst performance by a quarterback as far as passing yards since Charlie Whitehurst threw for less than 80 yards back in 2014. Raj, when I look at him, I think he's okay.
Right.
But I think he was a product of that system you're talking about. And if people start to figure out the system, first of all, which I do think there is something, I think you're onto something there. They've seen a lot of game film of this system, the formations, some of those things that catch you by surprise. They've seen Todd Gurley and been able to control Todd Gurley to where if you take those two things away, all of a sudden Jared Goff is going to look pretty pedestrian, which is what you've seen in this stretch. So why did you go out there and pay him as one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Danny. As a management or general manager or being in an executive office, I would always take the approach of let me see more.
Yes.
Like, unless I am up against someone else, like in the NBA, and someone's offered you're a restricted free agent, someone's throwing a boatload of money at you, and I want to keep you, or we're talking about pure free agency, then I got to make a deal. Otherwise, if I have you under control, I need to see more. Unless you're just a slam dunk, like, pardon the pun. Like, you're just ridiculous, and I know we're going to lock that up.
Which
but anything short of that, I'm taking my time.
I don't even know if Carson Wentz was a slam dunk, but Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate before he got hurt. He had led them.
They're different animals.
They are different animals, but they were 1-2 in the draft, and there's something it was weird when they signed him because nobody saw this coming. Jared Goff and his people had never been outspoken about wanting a new deal. I think they were kind of surprised. Basically, what you handed him was a gift, and you didn't have to. You could have waited one more season. That was my only point. And if you come out, you're the Rams, and you say, we know he's our guy, then I'm okay with that. If you say, hey, we wanted to avoid anything, I just don't think it was that smart, and I think you could have gotten a better deal. And maybe you still make him your franchise quarterback, and he's going to be that one, but I think you're going to strap yourself financially with the contract that you gave to him. Speaking of other quarterbacks who maybe should have been handed a deal and didn't get it and might actually be losing money because he didn't get it is Dak Prescott, because we mentioned the Rams losing 3 in a row. The Cowboys are in the same boat after starting 3-0, losing 3 back-to-back-to-back, including which was a much uglier loss. Like, you look at the Rams, the 49ers are like, hey, the 49ers were maybe one of the best teams in the league. Cowboys going to New York and losing to the Jets.
Yeah.
That's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, that's a very concerning loss. In and of itself, it's not. I mean, they're 0-4, but you really haven't seen the Jets this year. Like, real talk, you've seen Sam Darnold for what, 2 quarters?
Right.
Then and then you got Mono creep up, and so you don't. And the Jets' defense is for real, so you don't really know what the Jets are, even though the record is 0-4. But you couple in the fact that Dallas should have come out and played inspired football after what's happened the last couple weeks, and they look just really lackluster. Like, not just the way they perform, but their attitude looked like they were disinterested for a while.
Yep.
They kick it in gear late, but for 3 quarters or 2.5 quarters, they just look like they're not going to be responding to what happened last week, and that's concerning for me. Like, when you lay eggs, you're supposed to come out there and be firing on all cylinders, or at least be chomping at the bit to get back on the field. I do want to give them a little credit, though. Like, you're without possibly the best left tackle in the game, another starting offensive lineman, and Amari Cooper. But if you're asking for $40 million, and this is specific to Dak Prescott, that doesn't matter.
No, exactly. That's the type of category you're in where you make up for some of those things that are missing on the offensive side of the ball. As far as you would think, like, I'm always scared from a gambling perspective when you've got a good team or a perceived good team and they've lost back-to-back, you're like, man, this is going to be a team backed up against a wall. They're going to be salty.
Sure.
This is going to be their best performance. When you don't get that, to me, it falls on one person.
Oh, yeah.
And that's on Jason Garrett. That's on the head coach, who Jerry Jones was asked about after the game. And he said, this is a great quote, "I'm going to be very trite. I was a lot happier with what he had done the first 3 games than what's happened the last 3 games." You think? You think you're going to be? But the big thing I want to say, it's not just him. This is across the board. They had a lot of input out there tonight to get in that spot. Now, he kind of protects his guy. This is the only reason Jason Garrett still has a job. It is Jerry's guy. It's his yes man. He's fired coordinators because Jason Garrett has fired coordinators because that's what Jerry wanted. He's kind of always been the guy that says, yes, boss, whatever you need me to do. And that could be a good thing. I'm not faulting him for it. If I was making as much money coaching one of the biggest franchise in the NFL, I'd probably do the same thing. But at some point, you have to look at the results like this and a team which has majority been mediocre. And if it pans out this way this season, they're right around 500, which has kind of been his record.
Right.
You have to do some self-evaluating and say, what is the problem? Maybe it's the head coach.
I agree with you. If you're the star, if you're America's team and you hold yourself to that Super Bowl standard every year, you go out and you spend money on players and stuff that in your estimation are blue chip players. The one spot that you haven't really addressed is the head coach, right? You have enough of a sample size on that. That is 500 football, correct?
Yep.
Or somewhere in and about. And I would disagree with Jerry when he says that it wasn't just on him. This is across the board. When you're the head coach, all of that input that people are getting, that all falls under your job description. You know what I mean? Like, that offensive line getting their input, guess who should have had some say in that?
Right.
You. That defensive game plan that was put out there, guess who should have had some input in that, or at least had to check off on it?
Yep.
You. Like, do you know what I mean? The play calling, what's the young guy calling plays now?
Kellen Moore, who's the hottest coordinator in the game.
3 weeks ago, right?
Yes.
But his game plan, guess who should have checked off and signed off on that?
Yep.
You. So I disagree with Jerry when he says that it doesn't fall all on Jason Garrett. It does. It falls squarely on his shoulders.
I get it's frustrating. Did you see the video that went viral? I'm trying to show you this because Jason Garrett, after one of these stops, gets off the field. Some defensive players are running off the field, and he's trying to give him high fives.
Hey, nah.
I mean, don't even acknowledge him. That's pretty harsh. I mean, he kind of looks like...
You know where that happens? I would be honest.
You just left your coach hanging.
Nah, listen, this is hilarious to me because it happens. Again, the only thing I have to really draw parallels to is youth football. My son has a head coach who just loves him some him. right?
Right.
And the kids don't really respond to him. And I just sit up there and watch it in the stands.
Right.
They respond to their assistant coaches who are more like in the trenches with them, like for whatever reason, right? And I've got multiple videos, because I video the games, of dude running out trying to give somebody some dap and them just kind of walking right by him and going and hugging.
But it is. I don't know.
You don't have a connection, dude. You have no connection
and
there.
maybe we're making a lot out
No,
of
you're
this.
not.
Maybe they're just
No,
running
you're
off
not.
the
No, you're
field.
not. No, you're
but
not.
To me, those dudes are being, because they know Jason Garrett is an offensive-minded coach. To me, that's them saying, "Come on, man, you got to pick this thing
Do
up
your
on
job.
Yes,
Do your job.
Don't be out here high-fiving me. Go get the offense figured out." To me, is what he was saying. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Jason Garrett and the Cowboys the rest of the season, as they are reeling right now.